Chapter 27, Miss Skeeter. I stare at the phone in the kitchen. No one's called here in so long it's like a dead thing mounted to the wall. There's a terrible quiet looming everywhere. At the library, at the drugstore where I pick up Mother's medicine, on High Street where I buy typewriter ink, in our own house. President Kennedy's assassination, less than 2 weeks ago, has struck the world dumb. It's like no one wants to be the first to break the silence. Nothing seems important enough. On the rare occasion that the phone does ring lately, it's Dr. Neal calling with more bad test results, or a relative checking on Mother. And yet I still think Stuart sometimes, even though it's been 5 months since he's called. Even though I finally broke down and told Mother that we'd broken up. Mother looked shocked, as I suspected she would, but thankfully just sighed. I take a deep breath, dial 0, and close myself up in the pantry. I tell the local operator the long-distance number and wait. Harper and Row Publishers, how may I connect you? Elaine Stein's office, please. I wait for her secretary to come on the line, wishing I'd done this earlier. But it felt wrong to call the week of Kennedy's death, and I heard on the news most offices were closed. Then it was Thanksgiving week, and when I called, the switchboard told me no one was answering in her office at all. So now I'm calling more than a week later than I'd planned. Elaine Stein! I blink, surprised it's not her secretary. Mrs. Stein, I'm sorry, this is Eugenia Phelan in Jackson, Mississippi. Yes, Eugenia, she sighs, evidently irritated that she took the chance to answer her own phone. I was calling to let you know that the manuscript will be ready right after the new year. I'll be mailing it to you the second week of January. I smile, having delivered my rehearsed lines perfectly. There is silence, except for an exhale of cigarette smoke. I shift on the flour can. I'm the one writing about the black women in Mississippi? Yes, I remember, she says, but I can't tell if she really does. And then she says, You're the one who applied for the senior position. How's that project going? It's almost finished. We just have 2 more interviews to complete, and I was wondering if I should send it directly to your attention or to your secretary. Oh no, January's not acceptable. Eugenia, are you in the house? I hear Mother call. I cover the phone. Just a minute, Mama, I call back, knowing that if I don't, she'll barge in here. The last editors' meeting of the year is on December 21st, Mrs. Stein continues. If you want a chance at getting this read, I've got to have it in my hands by then. Otherwise, it goes in the pile. You don't want to be in the pile, Miss Phelan. But you told me January. Today's December 2nd. That only gives me 19 days to finish the entire thing. December 21st is when everyone leaves for vacation, and then the new year we're deluged with projects from our own list of authors and journalists. If you're a nobody, as you are, Miss Phelan, before the 21st is your window, your only window. I swallow. I don't know if... By the way, was that your mother you were speaking to? Do you still live at home? I try to think of a lie. She's just visiting, she's sick, she's passing through, because I do not want Mrs. Stein to know that I've done nothing with my life. But then I sigh. Yes, I still live at home. And the woman who raised you, I'm assuming she's still there? No, she's gone. Too bad. Do you know what happened to her? It's just occurred to me. You'll need a section about your own maid. I close my eyes, fighting frustration. I don't know, honestly. Well, find out and definitely get that in. It'll add something personal to all this. Yes, ma'am, I say, even though I have no idea how I'll finish 2 maids in time, much less write stories about Constantine. Just the thought of writing about her makes me wish deeply that she was here now. Goodbye, Miss Phelan. I hope you make the deadline, she says, but before she hangs up, she mutters, And for God's sakes, you're a 24-year-old educated woman. Go get an apartment. I get off the phone, stunned by the news of the deadline and Mrs. Stein's insistence to get Constantine in the book. I know I need to get to work immediately, but I check on Mother in her bedroom. In the past 3 months, her ulcers have gotten much worse. She's lost more weight and can't get through 2 days without vomiting. Even Dr. Neal looked surprised when I brought her in for her appointment last week. Mother eyes me up and down from her bed. Don't you have bridge club today? It's canceled. Elizabeth's baby's colicky. I lie. So many lies have been told, the room is thick with them. How are you feeling? I ask. The old white enamel bowl is next to her on the bed. Have you been sick? I'm fine. Don't wrinkle your forehead like that, Eugenia. It's not good for your complexion. Mother still doesn't know that I've been kicked out of bridge club, or that Patsy Joyner got a new tennis partner. I don't get invited to cocktail parties or baby showers anymore, or any functions where Hilly will be there, except the league. At meetings, girls are short, to the point with me when discussing newsletter business. I try to convince myself I don't care. I fix myself at the typewriter and don't leave most days. I tell myself that's what you get when you put 31 toilets on the most popular girl's front yard. People tend to treat you a little different than before. It was almost 4 months ago that the door was sealed shut between Hilly and me. A door made of ice so thick it would take 100 Mississippi summers to melt it. It's not as if I hadn't expected consequences. I just hadn't thought they'd last so long. Hilly's voice over the phone was gravelly sounding, low, like she'd been yelling all morning. You are sick, she hissed at me. Do not speak to me. Do not look at me. Do not say hello to my children. Technically, it was a typo, Hilly, was all I could think to say. I'm going over to Senator Whitworth's house myself and telling him you, Skeeter Phelan, will be a blight on his campaign in Washington, a wart on the face of his reputation if Stewart ever associates with you again. I cringed at the mention of the name, even though we'd been broken up for weeks by then. I could imagine him looking away, not caring what I did anymore. You turned my yard into some kind of a sideshow, Hilly had said. Just how long have you been planning to humiliate my family? What Hilly didn't understand was I hadn't planned it at all. When I started typing out her bathroom initiative for the newsletter, typing out words like disease and protect yourself and you're welcome, it was like something cracked open inside of me. Not unlike a watermelon, cool and soothing and sweet. I always thought insanity would be a dark, bitter feeling, but it is a drenching and delicious if you really roll around in it. I paid Pascagoula's brothers $25 each to put those junkyard pots on Hilly's lawn, and they were scared but willing to do it. I remember how dark the night had been. I remember feeling lucky that some old building had been gutted and there were so many toilets at the junkyard to choose from. Twice I've dreamed I was back there doing it again. I don't regret it, but I don't feel quite as lucky anymore. And you call yourself a Christian, were Hilly's final words to me, and I thought, God, when did I ever do that? This November, Stooley Whitworth won the senator's race for Washington, but William Holbrook lost the local election to take his state seat. I'm quite sure Hilly blames me for this too. Not to mention all the work that she'd put into setting me up with Stewart was for nothing. A few hours after talking to Mrs. Stein over the phone, I tiptoe back to check on Mother one last time. Daddy's already asleep beside her. Mother has a glass of milk on the table. She's propped up on her pillows, but her eyes are closed. She opens them as I'm peeking in. Can I get you anything, Mama? I'm only resting because Dr. Neal told me to. Where are you going, Eugenia? It's nearly 7 o'clock. I'll be back in a little while. I'm just going for a drive. I give her a kiss, hoping she doesn't ask any more questions. When I close the door, she's already fallen asleep. I drive fast through town. I dread telling Aibileen about the new deadline. The old truck rattles and bangs in the potholes. It's in fast decline after another hard cotton season. My head practically hits the ceiling because someone's retied the seat springs a little too tight. I have to drive with the window down, my arm hanging out so the door won't rattle. The front window has a new smash in it, the shape of a sunset. I pull up to a light on State Street across from the paper company. When I look over, there's Elizabeth and May Mobley and Raleigh, all crammed in the front seat of their white Corvair, headed home from supper somewhere, I guess. I freeze, not daring to look over again, afraid she'll see me and ask what I'm doing in the truck. I let them drive ahead, watching their taillights, fighting a hotness rising in my throat. It's been a long time since I've talked to Elizabeth. After the toilet incident, Elizabeth and I struggled to stay friends. We still talked on the phone, occasionally, but she stopped saying more than a hello and a few empty sentences to me at the league meetings, because Hilly would see her. The last time I stopped by Elizabeth's house was a month ago. I can't believe how big May Mobley's gotten, I'd said. May Mobley had smiled shyly, hid behind her mother's leg. She was taller, but still soft with baby fat. Growing like a weed, Elizabeth said, looking out the window. And I thought, What an odd thing to compare your child to. A weed. Elizabeth was still in her bathrobe, hair rollers in, already tiny again after the pregnancy. Her smile stayed tight. She kept looking at her watch, touching her curlers every few seconds. We stood around in the kitchen. Want to go to the club for lunch? I asked. Aibileen swung through the kitchen door then. In the dining room, I caught a glimpse of silver and a Battenberg lace. I can't, and I hate to rush you out, but Mama's meeting me at the Jewel Tailor shop. She shot her eyes out the front window again. You know how Mama hates to wait. Her smile grew exponentially. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't let me keep you. I patted her shoulder and headed for the door. And then it hit me. How could I be so dumb? It's Wednesday, 12 o'clock, my old bridge club. I backed the Cadillac down her drive, sorry that I'd embarrassed her so. When I turned, I saw her face stretched up to the window, watching me leave. And that's when I realized she wasn't embarrassed that she made me feel bad. Elizabeth Leafold was embarrassed to be seen with me. I park on Abilene Street, several houses down from hers, knowing we need to be even more cautious than ever. Even though Hilly would never come to this part of town, she is a threat to us all now, and I feel like her eyes are everywhere. I know the glee she would feel catching me do this. I don't underestimate how far she would go to make sure I suffered for the rest of my life. It's a crisp December night, and a fine rain is just starting to fall. Head down, I hurry along the street. My conversation this afternoon with Mrs. Stein is still racing through my head. I've been trying to prioritize everything left to do. But the hardest part is, I have to ask Aibileen, again, about what happened to Constantine. I cannot just do a just job on Constantine's story if I don't even know what's happened to her. It defeats the point of a book to put only in part of the story. It wouldn't be telling the truth. I hurry into Aibileen's kitchen. The look on my face must tell her something's wrong. What is it? Somebody see you? No, I say, pulling papers from my satchel. I talked to Mrs. Stein this morning. I tell her everything I know about the deadline and about the pile. All right, so Abileen's counting down days in her head, the same way that I have been all afternoon. So we've got 2.5 weeks instead of 6. Oh, law, that ain't enough time. We still got to finish writing the Lavinia section and smooth out Fay Bell. And the mini section, it ain't right yet. Mosquito, we ain't even got a title yet. I put my head in my hands. I feel like I'm slipping underwater. That's not all, I say. She wants me to write about Constantine. She asked me what happened to her. Aibileen sets her cup of tea down. I can't write it if I don't know what happened, Aibileen. So if you can't tell me, I was wondering if there's someone else who will. Aibileen shakes her head. I reckon they is, she says, but I don't want nobody else telling you that story. Then, will you? Aibileen takes off her black glasses, rubs her eyes. She puts them back on, and I expect to see a tired face. She's worked all day, and she'll be working even harder now to try and make the deadline. I fidget in my chair, waiting for her answer. But she doesn't look tired at all. She's sitting up straight and gives me a defiant nod. I'll write it down. Give me a few days, and I'll tell you everything that happened to Constantine. I work for 15 hours straight on Lavinia's interview. On Thursday night, I go to the league meeting. I'm dying to get out of the house, antsy from nerves, jittery about the deadline. The Christmas tree is starting to smell too rich. The spiced orange is sickly decadent. Mother is always cold, and my parents' house feels like I'm soaking in a vat of hot butter. I pause on the league steps, taking a deep breath of clean winter air. It's pathetic, but I'm glad to still have the newsletter. Once a week, I actually feel like I'm a part of things. And who knows, maybe this time will be different, with the holidays starting and all. But the minute I walk in, backs turn. My exclusion is tangible, as if concrete walls have formed around me. Hilly gives me a smirk, whips her head around to speak to someone else. I go deeper into the crowd and see Elizabeth. She smiles and I wave. I want to go talk to her about Mother, tell her I'm getting worried. But before I get too close, Elizabeth turns, head down, and walks away. I go to my seat. This is new, from her, here. Instead of my usual seat up front, I slip in the back row, angry that Elizabeth wouldn't even say hello. Beside me is Rachel Cole Brandt. Rachel hardly ever comes to the meetings, with 3 kids, working on her master's in English from Millsaps College. I wish we were better friends, but I know she's too busy. On my other side is damn Leslie Fullerbean. and her cloud of hairspray. She must risk her life every time she lights a cigarette. I wonder, if I push the top of her head, would aerosol spray come out of her mouth? Almost every girl in the room has her legs crossed, a lit cigarette in hand. The smoke gathers and curls around the ceiling. I haven't smoked in 2 months, and the smell makes me feel ill. Hilly steps up to the podium and announces the upcoming gimme drives: a coat drive, can drive, book drive, and a plain old money drive. And then we get to Hilly's favorite part of the meeting, the trouble list. This is where she gets to call out all the names of anyone late on their dues, or tardy for meetings, or not fulfilling their philanthropic duties. I'm always on the trouble list nowadays for something. Haley's wearing a red wool A-line dress with a cape coat over it, Sherlock Holmes style, even though it's as hot as a fire in here. Every once in a while, she tosses back the front flap like it's in her way, but she looks like she's enjoying the gesture too much for it to really be a problem. Her helper, Mary Nell, stands next to her, handing her notes. Mary Nell has the look of a blonde lapdog, the Pekingese kind with the tiny feet and a nose that perks up on the end. Now we have something very exciting to discuss. Hilly accepts the notes from the lapdog and scans over them. The committee has decided that our newsletter could use a little updating. I sit up straighter. Shouldn't I decide on changes to the newsletter? First of all, we're changing the newsletter from a weekly to a monthly. It's just too much with stamps going up 6 cents and all. And we're adding a fashion column, highlighting some of the best outfits worn by our members, and a makeup column with all the latest trends. Oh, and the trouble list, of course. That'll be in there too. She nods her head, making eye contact with a few members. And finally, the most exciting change, we've decided to name this new correspondence The Tattler, after the European magazine all the ladies over there read. Isn't that the cutest name? Says Mary Lou White, and Hilly's so proud of herself she doesn't even bang the gavel at her for speaking out of turn. Okay then, it is time to choose an editor for our new modern monthly. Any nominations? Several hands pop up. I sit very still. Jeannie Price, what say ye? I say Hilly. I nominate Hilly Holbrook. Oh, aren't you the sweetest thing? All right, any others? Rachel Cole Brandt turns and looks at me. Are you believing this? Evidently, she's the only one in the room who doesn't know about me and Hilly. Any seconds, too? Hilly looks down at the podium like she can't quite remember who had been nominated. To Hilly Holbrook as editor? I second. I third. Bang, bang goes the gavel, and I've lost my post as editor. Leslie Fullerbean is staring at me with eyes so wide, I can see there isn't anything back there where her brain should be. Skeeter, isn't that your job? Rachel says. It was my job, I mutter, and head straight for the doors when the meeting's over. No one speaks to me, no one looks me in the eye. I keep my head high. In the foyer, Hilly and Elizabeth talk. Haley tucks her dark hair behind her ears, gives me a diplomatic smile. She strides off to chat with someone else, but Elizabeth stays where she is. She touches my arm as I walk out. Hey, Elizabeth, I murmur. I'm sorry, Skeeter, she whispers, and our eyes hang together. But then she looks away. I walk down the steps and into the dark parking lot. I thought she had something more to say to me, but I guess I was wrong. I don't go straight home after the league meeting. I roll all the Cadillac windows down and let the night air blow on my face. It is warm and cold at the same time. I know I need to go home and work on the stories, but I turn onto the wide lanes of State Street and just drive. I've never felt so empty in my life. I can't help but think of all that's piling up on top of me. I will never make this deadline. My friends despise me. Stuart is gone. Mother is. I don't know what Mother is, but we all know it's more than just stomach ulcers. The Sun and Sandbar is closed, and I go by slow, stare at how dead a neon sign seems when it's turned off. I coast past the tall Lamar Life building, through the yellow blinking streetlights. It's only 8 o'clock at night, but everyone has gone to bed. Everyone's asleep in this town in every way possible. I wish I could just leave here, I say, and my voice sounds eerie, with no one to hear it. In the dark, I get a glimpse of myself from way above, like in a movie. I become one of those people who prowl around at night in their cars. God, I'm the town's Boo Radley, just like in To Kill a Mockingbird. I flick on the radio, desperate for noise to fill my ears. It's My Party is playing, and I search for something else. I'm starting to hate the whiny teenage songs about love and nothing. In a moment of aligned wavelengths, I pick up Memphis WKPO, and out comes a man's voice, drunk sounding, singing fast and bluesy. At a dead end street, I ease into the tote some store parking lot, and I listen to the song. It's better than anything I've ever heard. You'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a changin', he sings. A voice in a can tells me his name is Bob Dylan, but as the next song starts, the signal fades. I lean back in my seat, stare out at the dark windows of the store. I feel a rush of inexplicable relief. I feel like I've just heard something from the future. At the phone booth outside the store, I put in a dime and call Mother. I know she'll wait up for me until I get home. Hello? It's Daddy's voice at 8:15 at night. Daddy, why are you up? What's wrong? You need to come on home now, darling. The streetlight suddenly feels too bright in my eyes, the night very cold. Is it Mama? Is she sick? Stuart's been sitting on the porch for almost 2 hours now. He's waiting on you. Stuart? It doesn't make sense. But Mama, Oh, Mama's fine. In fact, she brightened up a little. Come on home, Skeeter, and tend to Stuart now. The drive home has never felt so long. 10 minutes later, I pull in the front of the house and see Stuart sitting on the top front porch step. Daddy's in a rocking chair. They both stand when I turn off the car. Hey, Daddy, I say. I don't look at Stuart. Where's Mama? She's asleep. I just checked on her. Daddy yawns. I haven't seen him up past 7 o'clock in 10 years, when the spring cotton froze. Night, you two. Turn the lights out when you're done. Daddy goes inside, and Stuart and I are left alone. The night is so black, so quiet, I can't see stars or a moon or even a dog in the yard. What are you doing here? I say, and my voice, it sounds small. I came to talk to you. I sit on the front step and put my head down on my arms. Just say it fast and then go on. I was getting better. I heard the song and I almost felt better 10 minutes ago. He moves closer to me, but not so close that we're touching. I wish we were touching. I came to tell you something. I came to say that I saw her. I lift my head up. The first word in my head is selfish. You selfish son of a bitch, coming here to talk about Patricia. I went out there to San Francisco 2 weeks ago. I got in my truck and I drove for 4 days, and I knocked on the door of that apartment house her mama gave me the address to. I cover my face. All I can see is Stuart pushing her hair back like he used to do with me. I don't want to know this. I told her I thought that it was the ugliest thing you could do to a person, lie that way. She looked so different. Had on this prairie-looking dress and a peace sign, and her hair was long, and she didn't have any lipstick on. And she laughed when she saw me. And then she called me a whore. He rubs his eyes hard with his knuckles. She, the one who took her clothes off for that guy, said I was a whore to my daddy, a whore to Mississippi. Why are you telling me this? My fists are clenched. I taste metal. I've obviously bitten down on my tongue. I drove out there because of you. After we broke up, I knew I had to get her out of my head. And I did it, Skeeter. I drove 2,000 miles there and back, and I'm here to tell you, it's dead. It's gone. Well, good, Stuart, I say. Good for you. He moves closer and leans down so I will look at him. And I feel sick, literally nauseated by the smell of bourbon on his breath. And yet, I still want to fold myself up and put my entire body in his arms. I am loving him and hating him at the same time. Go home, I say, hardly believing myself. There's no place left inside of me for you. I don't believe that. You're too late, Stuart. Can I come by on Saturday to talk some more? I shrug, my eyes full of tears. I won't let him throw me away again. It's already happened too many times with him and with my friends. I'd be stupid to let it happen again. I don't really care what you do. I wake up at 5 a.m. and start working on the stories. With only 17 days until deadline, I work through the day and the night, and a speed and efficiency I didn't know I possessed. I finish Lavinia's story in half the time it took me to write the others, and with an intense burning headache, I turn off the light as the first rays of sun peek through the window. If Aibileen will give me Constantine's story by early next week, I might just be able to pull this off. And then I realize I do not have 17 more days. How dumb of me. I have 10 days, because I haven't accounted for the time it will take to mail it to New York. I'd cry if only I had the time to do it. A few hours later, I wake up and go back to work. At 5 in the afternoon, I hear a car pull up and see Stuart climb out of his truck. I tear myself away from the typewriter and go out to the front porch. Hello, I say, standing in the doorway. Hey, Skeeter. He nods at me, shyly, I think, compared to his way 2 nights ago. Afternoon, Mr. Phelan. Hey there, son. Daddy gets up from the rocking chair. I'll let you kids talk out here. Don't get up, Daddy. I'm sorry, but I'm busy today, Stuart. You're welcome to sit out here with Daddy as long as you'd like. I go back in the house, past Mother at the kitchen table drinking warm milk. Was that Stuart I saw out there? I go in the dining room. I stand back from the windows where I know Stuart can't see me. I watch until he drives away, and then I just keep watching. That night, as usual, I go to Abilene's. I tell her about the deadline of only 10 days, and she looks like she might cry. Then I hand her Lavinia's chapter to read, the one I've written at lightning speed. Minnie's at the kitchen table with us, drinking a Coke, looking out the window. I hadn't known she'd be here tonight and wished she'd leave us to work. Abilene puts it down and nods. I think this chapter is right good. Reads just as well as the slow-wrote ones. I sigh, leaning back in my chair, thinking of what else needs to be done. We need to decide on the title, I say, and rub my temples. I've been working on a few. I think we should call it Black Domestics and the Southern Families for Which They Work. Say what? Minnie says, looking at me for the first time. That's the best way to describe it, don't you think? I say. If you got a corncob up your butt. This isn't fiction, Minnie. It's sociology. It has to sound exact. But that doesn't mean it have to sound boring, Minnie says. Abilene, I sigh, hoping we can resolve this tonight. What do you think? Abilene shrugs, and I can see already she's putting on her peacemaking smile. It seems she has to smooth things over every time Minnie and I are in the same room. That's a good title. Of course, you're going to get tired of typing all that on the top of every page, she says. I told her this is how it has to be done. Well, we could shorten it a little, I say, and pull out my pencil. Abilene scratches her nose and says, What do you think about just calling it help? Help, Minnie repeats, like she's never heard the word. Help, I say. Abilene shrugs, looks down shyly, like she's a little embarrassed. I ain't trying to take over your idea. I like to keep things simple, you know? I guess help sounded all right to me, Minnie says and crosses her arms. I like help, I say, because I really do. I add, well, I think we'll have to put the description underneath so the category's clear, but I think that's a good title. Good is right, Minnie says, because if this thing's going to get printed, Lord knows we going to need some. On Sunday afternoon, with 8 days left, I come downstairs, dizzy and blinking from staring at the picotype all day. I was almost glad when I heard Stuart's car pull up the drive. I rub my eyes. Maybe I'll sit with him a while to clear my head, then go back and work through the night. Stuart climbs out of his mud-splattered truck. He's still in his Sunday tie, and I try to ignore how handsome he looks. I stretch my arms. It's ridiculously warm out, considering Christmas is in 2.5 weeks. Mother's sitting on the porch in a rocking chair, swathed in blankets. Hello, Miss Phelan. How are you feeling today? Stuart asks. Mother gives him a regal nod. Fair. Thank you for asking. I'm surprised by the coolness of her voice. She turns back to her newsletter, and I can't help but smile. Mother knows he's been stopping by, but she hasn't mentioned it but once. I have to wonder when it will come. Hey, he says to me quietly, and we sit on the bottom porch step. Silently, we watch our old cat Sherman sneak around a tree, his tail swaying, going after some creature we can't see. Stuart puts his hand on my shoulder. I can't stay today. I'm heading to Dallas right now for an oil meeting, and I'll be gone 3 days, he says. I just came by to tell you. All right, I shrug like it makes no difference. All right then, he says and gets back in the truck. When he's disappeared, Mother clears her throat. I don't turn around and look at her in the rocking chair. I don't want her to see the disappointment in my face that he's gone. Go ahead, Mother, I finally mutter to her. Say what you want to say. Don't you let him cheapen you. I look back at her, eye her suspiciously, even though she's so frail under the wool blanket. Sorry is the fool who ever underestimates my mother. If Stewart doesn't know how intelligent and kind I raised you to be, he can march straight on back to State Street. She narrows her eyes onto the winter land. Frankly, I don't care much for Stewart. He doesn't know how lucky he was to have you. I let Mother's words sit like a tiny, sweet candy on my tongue, forcing myself up from the step. I head for the front door. There's so much work to be done, and not nearly enough time. Thank you, Mother. I kiss her softly on the cheek and go inside. I'm exhausted and irritable. For 48 hours, I've done nothing but type. I'm stupid with facts about other people's life. My eyes sting from the smell of typing ink. My fingers are striped with paper cuts. Who knew paper and ink could be so vicious? With just 6 days left, I go over to Abilene's. She's taken a weekday off from work, despite Elizabeth's annoyance. I can tell she knows what we need to discuss before I even say it. She leaves me in the kitchen and comes back with a letter in her hand. Before I give this to you, I think I ought to tell you some things so you can really understand. I nod. I am tense in my chair. I want to tear the envelope open and get this over with. Abilene strengthens her notebook that's sitting in the kitchen table. I watch as she aligns her 2 yellow pencils. Remember, I told you Constantine had a daughter. Well, Lulabelle was her name. La, she came out pale as snow. Grew hair the color of hay. Not curly like yours. Straight it was. She was white? I ask. I've wondered this ever since Abilene told me about Constantine's child, way back in Elizabeth's kitchen. I think about how surprised Constantine must have been to hold a white baby and know it was hers. She nods. When Lulabelle was 4 years old, Constantine, Abilene shifts in her chair, she'd take her to an orphanage up in Chicago. An orphanage? You mean she gave her baby away? As much as Constantine loved me, I can only imagine how much she must have loved her own child. Abilene looks me straight in the eye. I see something there I rarely see. Frustration, antipathy. A lot of black women gotta give their children up, Miss Skeeter. Send their kids off because they have to tend to a white family. I look down, wondering if Constantine couldn't take care of her own child because she had to take care of us. But most of them sent him off to family. An orphanage is different altogether. Why didn't she send the baby to her sisters or another relative? Her sister, she just couldn't handle it. Being black with white skin in Mississippi, it's like you don't belong to nobody. But it wasn't just hard on the girl, it was hard on Constantine. Folks would look at her. White folks would stop her, ask her all suspicious what she was doing toting around a white child. Policemen used to stop her on State Street, told her she needed to get her a uniform on. Even black folks, they treated her different. Distrustful, like she'd done something wrong. It was hard for her to find somebody to watch Lulabelle while she at work. Constantine got to where she didn't want to bring Lula out much. Was she already working for my mother then? She'd been with your mama a few years. That's where she met the father, Connor. He worked on your farm, lived back there in Hot Stack. Abilene shakes her head. We was all surprised that Constantine would go and get herself in a family way. Some folks at church wasn't so kind about it, especially when the baby came out white, even though the father was as black as me. I'm sure Mother wasn't too pleased either. Mother, I'm sure, knew all about it. She's always kept tabs on all the help in their situations. Where they live, if they're married, how many children they have. It's more of a control thing than a real interest. She wants to know who's walking around her property. Was it a black orphanage or a white one? Because I'm hoping maybe Constantine just wanted a better life for her child. Maybe she thought she'd be adopted by a white family and she'd not feel so different. Black one. The white ones wouldn't take her, I heard. I guess they knew. Maybe they seen that kind of thing before. When Constantine went to the train station with Lulabelle to take her up there, I heard white folks was starting on the platform, wanting to know why a little white girl was going in the black car. And when Constantine left her at that place up in Chicago, well, 4 is pretty old to get given up, Lulabelle was screaming. That's what Constantine told somebody at our church. Said Lula was screaming and thrashing, trying to get her mama to come back to her. But Constantine, even with that sound in her ears, she left her there. As I listen, it starts to hit me what Abilene is telling me. If I hadn't had the mother I have, I might not have thought it. She gave her up because she was ashamed, because her daughter was white? Aibileen opens her mouth to disagree, but then closes it and looks down. A few years later, Constantine wrote to the orphanage, told him she'd made a mistake and wanted her girl back. But Lula had been adopted already. She was gone. Constantine always said giving her child away was the worst mistake she had ever made in her life. Aibileen leans back in the chair. And she said if she ever got Lulabelle back, she'd never let her go. I sit quietly, my heart aching for Constantine. I'm starting to dread what this has to do with my mother. About 2 years ago, Constantine got a letter from Lulabelle. I reckon she was 25 by then, and it said her adoptive parents gave her the address. They start writing to each other, and Lulabelle, she said that she wanted to come down and stay with her a while. Constantine, la, she's so nervous she couldn't walk straight. Too nervous to eat, wouldn't even take no water. Kept throwing it up. I had her on my prayer list. 2 years ago, I was up at school then. Why didn't Constantine tell me in her letters what was going on? She took all her savings and bought new clothes for Lulabelle. Hair things, had the church bee sew her a new quilt for the bed Lula gonna sleep in. She told us at the prayer meeting, what if she'll hate me? She's gonna ask me why I gave her away, and if I tell her the truth, she'll hate me for what I've done. Aibileen looks up from her cup of tea and smiles a little. She told us, I can't wait for Skeeter to meet her when she get back home from school. I forgot about that. I didn't know who Skeeter was back then. I remember my last letter from Constantine, that she'd had a surprise for me. I realize now she wanted to introduce me to her daughter. I swallow back tears coming up in my throat. What happened when Lulabelle came down to see her? Aibileen slides the envelope across the table. I reckon you ought to read that part at home. At home, I go upstairs. Without even stopping to sit down, I open Aibileen's letter. It's on notebook paper, covering the front and the back, written in cursive pencil. Afterward, I stare at the 8 pages I've already written about walking to Hotstack with Constantine, the puzzles we worked on together, her pressing her thumb in my hand. I take a deep breath and put my hands on the typewriter keys. I can't waste any more time. I have to finish her story. I write about what Aibileen told me, that Constantine had a daughter and had to give her up so that she could work for our family. The Millers, I call us, after Henry, my favorite band author. I don't put in that Constantine's daughter was high yellow. I just want to show that Constantine's love for me began with missing her own child. Perhaps that's what made it so unique, so deep. It didn't matter that I was white. While she was wanting her own daughter back, I was longing for Mother not to be disappointed in me. For 2 days, I write all the way through my childhood, my college years, where we sent letters to each other every other week. But then I stop and listen to Mother coughing downstairs. I hear Daddy's footsteps going to her. I light a cigarette and then stub it out, thinking, don't start up again. The toilet water rushes through the house, filled with a little more of my mother's body. I light another cigarette and smoke it down to my fingers. I can't write about what's in Aibileen's letter. That afternoon, I call Aibileen at home. I can't put this in the book, I tell her. About Mother and Constantine. I'll end it when I go to college. Mosquito, I know I should. I know I should be sacrificing as much as you and Minnie and all of you, but I can't do that to my mother. No one expects you to, Mosquito. The truth is, I wouldn't think real high of you if you did. The next evening, I go in the kitchen for some tea. Eugenia, are you downstairs? I tread back to Mother's room. Daddy's not in bed yet. I hear the television on out in the relaxing room. I'm here, Mama. She's in bed at 6 in the evening, the white bowl by her side. Have you been crying? You know how that ages your skin, dear. I sit in the straight cane chair beside her bed. I think about how I should begin. Part of me understands why Mother acted the way she did. Because really, wouldn't anyone be angry about what Lulabelle did? But I need to hear my mother's side of the story. If there's anything redeeming about what my mother, that Aibileen left out of the letter, I need to know. I want to talk about Constantine, I say. Oh, Eugenia, Mother chides and pats my hand. That was 2 years ago. Mama, I say, and make myself look into her eyes. Even though she's terribly thin and her collarbone is long and narrow beneath her skin, her eyes are still as sharp as ever. What happened? What happened with her daughter? Mother's jaw tightens, and I can tell she's surprised that I know about her. I wait for her to refuse to talk about it as before. She takes a deep breath, moves the white bowl a little closer to her, and says, Constantine sent her up to Chicago to live. She couldn't take care of her. I nod and wait. They're different that way, you know. Those people have children and don't think about consequences until it's too late. They, those people. This talk reminds me of Hilly. Mother sees it on my face, too. Now you look, I was good to Constantine. Oh, she talked back plenty of times and I put up with it. But Skeeter, she didn't give me a choice this time. I know, Mother, I know what happened. Who told you? Who else knows about this? I see the paranoia rising in Mother's eyes. It's her greatest fear coming true, and I feel sorry for her. I will never tell you who told me. All I can say is, it was no one important to you. I say, I can't believe you would do that, Mother. How dare you judge me after what she did? Do you really know what happened? Were you there? I can see old anger, an obstinate woman who survived years of bleeding ulcers. That girl, she shakes her knobby finger at me. She showed up here. I had the entire DAR chapter at the house. You were up at school and the doorbell was ringing nonstop, and Constantine was in the kitchen making all that coffee over since the old percolator burned the first 2 pots right up. Mother waves away the remembered reek of scorched coffee. They were all in the living room having cake, 95 people in the house, and she's drinking coffee. She's talking to Sarah Von Cistern and walking around the house like a guest and sticking cake in her mouth. And then she's filling out the form to become a member. Again, I nod. Maybe I didn't know those details, but they don't change what happened. She looked as white as anybody, and she knew it too. She knew exactly what she was doing, and so I said, How do you do? And she laughs and says, Fine. So I say, What's your name? And she says, You mean you don't know? I'm Lulabelle Bates. I'm grown now, and I've moved back in with my mama. I got here yesterday morning. And then she goes over to help herself to another piece of cake. Bates, I say, because this is another detail I didn't know, albeit insignificant. She changed her last name back to Constantine's then. Thank God nobody heard her. But then she starts talking to Phoebe Miller, the president of the Southern States of the DAR, and I pulled her into the kitchen and I said, Lulabelle, you can't stay here. You need to go on. And oh, she looked at me haughty. She said, What, you don't allow black people in your living room if we're not cleaning up? And that's when Constantine walked in the kitchen and she looked as shocked as I am. And I said, Lulabelle, you get out of this house before I call Mr. Phelan. But she won't budge. She says that when I thought she was white, I treated her fine and dandy. Says that up in Chicago, she's part of some underground group. So I tell Constantine, I said, You get your daughter out of my house right now. Mother's eyes seem more deep set than before. Her nostrils are flaring. So Constantine, she tells Lulabelle to go back to their house, and Lulabelle said, Fine, I'm leaving anyway, and heads for the dining room, and of course I stopped her. Oh no, I said, you go out the back door, not the front with the white guests. I was not about to have the DAR find out about this, and I told that bawdy girl, whose own mama we gave $10 extra every Christmas, that she was not to step foot on my farm again. And do you know what she did? Yes, I think, but I keep my face blank. I'm still searching for the redemption in this. Spit in my face. A black person in my home trying to act white. I shudder. Who would have ever had the nerve to spit at my mother? I told Constantine that girl better not show her face here again. Not to Hotstack, not to the state of Mississippi. Nor would I tolerate her keeping terms with Lulabelle. Not as long as your daddy was paying Constantine's rent on that house back there. But it was Lulabelle acting that way, not Constantine. What if she stayed? I couldn't have that girl going around Jackson, acting white when she was black, telling everybody she got into a DAR party at Longleaf. I just thank God nobody ever found out about it. She tried to embarrass me in my own home, Eugenia. 5 minutes before, she had Phoebe Miller filling out the form for her to join. She hadn't seen her daughter in 20 years. You can't tell a person they can't see their child. But Mother is caught up in her own story. And Constantine, she thought she could get me to change my mind. Miss Phelan, please, just let her stay at the house. She won't come on this side again. I haven't seen her in so long. And that Lulabelle with her hand up on her hip, she's saying, Yeah, my daddy died, and my mama was too sick to take care of me when I was a baby. She had to give me away. You can't keep us apart. Mother lowers her voice. She seems matter of fact now. I looked at Constantine and I felt so much shame for her. To get pregnant in the first place, and then to lie. I feel sick and hot. I'm ready for this to be over. Mother narrows her eyes. It's time you learned, Eugenia, how things really are. You idolize Constantine too much. You always have. She points her finger at me. They're not like regular people. I can't look at her. I close my eyes. And then what happened, Mother? I asked Constantine just as plain as day. Is this what you told her? Is this how you cover your mistakes? This is the part I was hoping wasn't true. This is what I'd hoped Abeline had been wrong about. I told Lulabelle the truth. I told her, your daddy didn't die. He left the day after you were born. And your mama hadn't been sick a day in her life. She gave you up because you were too high yellow. She didn't want you. Why couldn't you let her believe what Constantine told her? Constantine was so scared she wouldn't like her. That's why she told her those things. Because Lulabelle needed to know the truth. She needed to go back to Chicago where she belonged. I let my head sink into my hands. There's no redeeming piece of the story. I know why Abeline hadn't wanted to tell me. A child should never know this about her own mother. I never thought Constantine would go to Illinois with her, Eugenia. Honestly, I was sorry to see her go. You weren't, I say. I think about Constantine after living 50 years in the country, sitting in a tiny apartment in Chicago. How lonely she must have felt. How bad her knees must have felt in the cold. I was, and even though I told her not to write you, she probably would have if there had been more time. More time? Constantine died, Skeeter. I sent her a check for her birthday to the address I found for her daughter. But Lulabelle, she sent it back with a copy of her obituary. Constantine, I cry. I wish I had known. Why didn't you tell me, Mama? Mother sniffs, keeps her eyes straight ahead. She quickly wipes her eyes. Because I knew you'd blame me when it wasn't my fault. When did she die? How long was she living in Chicago? I ask. Mother pulls the basin closer and hugs it to her side. 3 weeks. Abeline opens her back door and lets me in. Minnie is sitting at the table, stirring her coffee. When she sees me, she tugs the sleeve of her dress down, but I can see the edge of a white bandage on her arm. She grumbles a hello, then goes back to her cup. I put the manuscript down on the table with a thump. If I mail it in the morning, that still leaves 6 days for it to get there. We might just make it. I smile through my exhaustion. La, that is something. Look at all them pages. Abeline grins and sits on her stool. 266 of them. Now we just wait and see, I say, and we all three stare at the stack. Finally, Minnie says, and I can see a hint of something. Not exactly a smile, but more like a satisfaction. The room goes quiet. It's dark outside the window. The post office is already closed, so I brought it over to show Abeline and Minnie one last time before I mail it. Usually I only bring over sections at a time. What if they find out? Abeline says quietly. Minnie looks up from her coffee. What if folks find out Niceville is Jackson, or figure out who's who? They ain't gonna know, Minnie says. Jackson ain't no special place. There's 10,000 towns just like it. We haven't talked about this in a while, and besides Winnie's comment about tongues, we haven't really discussed the actual consequences, besides maids losing jobs. For the past 8 months, all we've thought about is just getting it written. Minnie, you got your kids to think about, Abeline says. And Leroy, if he find out... The sureness in Minnie's eyes changes to something darting, paranoid. Leroy gonna be mad, sure enough. She tugs at her sleeve again. Mad, then sad, if the white people catch a hold of me. You think maybe we ought to find a place we could go, in case it gets bad? Abeline asks. You might think about that, Miss Skeeter. Somewhere for yourself, Abeline says. I can't leave Mother, I say. I've been standing, and then I sink down into a chair. Abeline, do you really think they'd hurt us? I mean, like what's in the papers? Abeline cocks her head at me, confused. She wrinkles her forehead like we've had a misunderstanding. They'd beat us. They'd come out here with baseball bats. Maybe they won't kill us, but... But who exactly would do this? The white women we've written about? They wouldn't hurt us, would they? I ask. Don't you know white men's like nother than protecting their white women's town? My skin prickles. I'm not so afraid for myself, but for what I've done to Abeline, to Minnie, to Lavinia and Fay Bell and all the 8 other women. The book is sitting there on the table. I want to put it in my satchel and hide it. Instead, I look to Minnie because, for some reason, I think she's the only one among us who really understands what could happen. She doesn't look back at me, though. She is lost in thought. She's running her thumbnail back and forth across her lip. Minnie, what do you think? I ask. Minnie keeps her eyes on the window, nods at her own thoughts. I think what we need is some insurance. Ain't no such thing, Aibileen says. Not for us. But what if we put in the terrible awful in the book? Minnie asks. We can't, Minnie, Aibileen says. It would give us away. But if we put it in there, then Miss Hilly can't let anybody find out the book's about Jackson. She don't want anybody to know the stories about her. And if they start getting close to figuring it out, she's going to steer them the other way. La, Minnie, that is too risky. Nobody can predict what that woman's going to do. Nobody knows the story but Miss Hilly and her own mama, Minnie says. And Miss Celia, but she ain't got no friends to tell anyway. What happened? I ask. Is it really that terrible? Aibileen looks at me. My eyebrows go up. Who's she going to admit that to? Minnie asks Aibileen. She ain't going to want you and Miss Lethal to get identified either, Aibileen, because then people just going to be one step away. I'm telling you, Miss Hilly's the best protection we got. Aibileen shakes her head, then nods, then shakes it again. We watch her and wait. If we put the terrible awful in the book and people do find out that was you and Miss Hilly, then you in so much trouble. Aibileen shudders. There's not even a name for it. That's a risk I'm just going to have to take. I already made up my mind. Either you put it in or pull out my part altogether. Aibileen and Minnie's eyes hang on each other's. We can't pull out Minnie's section. It's the last chapter of the book. About getting fired 19 times in the same small town. About what it's like to keep the anger inside and never succeeding. It starts with her mother's rules of how to work for white women, all the way up to leaving Mrs. Walters. I want to speak up, but I keep my mouth shut. Finally, Aibileen sighs. All right, she says, shaking her head. I reckon you better tell her then. Minnie narrows her eyes at me. I pull out a pencil and a pad. I'm only telling you for the book, you understand. Ain't nobody sharing no heartfelt secrets here. I'll make us some more coffee, Aibileen says. On the drive back to Longleaf, I shudder, thinking about what Minnie's pie story said. I don't know if we'd be safer leaving it out or putting it in. Not to mention, if I can't get it written in time to make it to the mail tomorrow, it'll put us yet another day later, shorting our chances to make the deadline. I can picture the red fury on Hilly's face, the date, the hate that she still feels for Minnie. I know my old friend well. If we're found out, Hilly will be our fiercest enemy. Even if we're not found out, printing the pie story will put Hilly in a rage like I've never seen. But Minnie's right. It's our best insurance. I look over my shoulder every quarter mile. I keep exactly to the speed limit and stay on the back roads. They will beat us, rings in my ears. I write all night, grimacing over the details of Minnie's story, and all the next day. At 4 p.m, I jam the manuscript in a cardboard letter box. I quickly wrap the box in brown paper wrapping. Usually it takes 7 or 8 days, but it'll somehow have to get to New York City in 6 days to make the deadline. I speed to the post office, knowing it closes at 4:30, despite my fear of the police, and I rush inside to the window. I haven't gone to sleep since the night before last. My hair is literally sticking straight up in the air. The postman's eyes widen. Windy outside? Please, can you get this out today? It's going to New York. He looks at the address. Out-of-town truck's gone, ma'am. It'll have to wait till morning. He stamps the postage and I head home. As soon as I walk in, I go straight to the pantry to call Elaine Stein's office. Her secretary puts me through and I tell her, in a hoarse, tired voice, I mailed the manuscript today. The last editor's meeting's in 6 days, Eugenia. Not only will it have to get here in time, I'll have time to read it. I'd say it's highly unlikely. There's nothing left to say, so I just murmur, I know. Thank you for the chance. And I add, Merry Christmas, Mrs. Stein. We call it Hanukkah, but thank you, Miss Phelan.